Good evening, welcome to tonight's meeting of the North Applications Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Edward Labour, Committee Chairman. My apologies that we are running some 35 minutes late because the Majors meeting that preceded you took a little longer than we were hoping. Can I do apologies for absence first, please?
Yes, no apologies received, Chairman.
Any declarations of interest? None. Minutes 24th of October, can I take those as approved? Great. Thank you very much. There are no matters to be notified or as urgent. The agenda is the one as published by the Head of Planning. All items are in Part 1 tonight. All items will be taken in the order that they are listed. Can I just do the usual health and safety and remind people that if the fire alarm does go off, we will be leaving. Can I ask please all mobile phones are switched off or at least to silent. I'm going to truncate some of the rest of it because I am conscious you've all been waiting around. So I'll save some of the introductions. I think most of the faces around the table are known to most of you. We have two petition items, 5 minutes for petitioners, 5 minutes for applicants or their agents. There are no ward councillors have indicated. There are no ward councillors in the audience. I'm assuming no ward councillors are coming. When you get to you get 4 minutes green, a minute amber, and when you get to red, you're done. I think the process is familiar. On the petition items, regardless of whether the petitioner speaks, the applicant or their agent has the right to speak, and we may ask questions to anybody who does. The fact that we don't just means we understand what's been said to us. Okay? And therefore I will move us forward in the interests of getting going. Matt, could you take me through item 6, please, land at the rear of 93 to 107 Field End Road, which I think is subject to a minor addendum. It doesn't change the content, it just clarifies a couple of matters.
Thank you, Chairman. The proposal is for the erection of a 2-storey building to include 4 2-bed self-contained flats with associated parking and amenity space involving the demolition of existing outbuildings. I'll just take members through the slides. It will be easier to explain. What we have is a row of shops on Field End Road with 2 stories of flats above. Here we have the rear service yards and parking for those commercial units. Let me just take, the members through. Just take them to some CGI to show you what they're proposing. So in essence, at the back, let's get to the photos. I do apologise. There's a lot of slides for this one. In essence, as you can see, you've got commercial units on the ground floor with flats above, and what the proposal is to knock down some of these units. You can single-storey projections you can see, and build a 2-storey block of flats. This is a photo of the back of one of the units with existing parking, and obviously here you see a shipping container which will disappear. If I just remember again, just some more slides to give you my pointer isn't working very well. That's the frontage with the shops and the residential units above, and you can see again how the number of habitable room windows that you can see to the rear, and you have very close the proximity of the proposed development. Which, if I go back to the layouts, see a particular room which I want to show you. Here you go. So you can see the proximity, the block of flats with the existing units. KD stands for kitchen diner, which is habitable, and you've got a proximity of about 8 metres between those. That's one of the issues. If I go to the other layout plan, one of the other issues you've got the access road to the rear. Here you'll have garage doors that will be closed when it's not in use, and with parking in these spots here and here. So we've been advised by the applicant that these are replacements for the existing commercial parking spaces that will be lost by the development. There's no mention of residential parking spaces. Some of the objectors have raised issues saying that they do park there and that those parking spaces are being lost. But we do not have any indication of any replacement residential spaces. So with the development, if I can just show you, so in essence, again, this is a view of the rear, and that's what they're going to look like. Two-storey buildings, flats above, with the parking areas to the bottom, the garage doors that I was referring to. I'm just going to flick through this one to take you to the seat. There you go, that's sort of a better elevation of what's going to look like. Garage doors at the bottom and flats at the top. You've got a sort of a 3D image of what that might look like. The service road here with the access. Now, if I just go back one to the layout again, just to pinpoint what the issues are, notwithstanding the fact that the development, it's unacceptable in principle, given that everything there at the moment is single-storey commercial outbuildings, and to put residential there in principle is not acceptable because of the appearance. And you've got the layouts here, so you've got parking spaces here and here, you've got pillars here and here and there, and they haven't demonstrated how the cars, if they can physically actually manoeuvre their way into these parking spaces. You also have a delivery bay here, again, which, you know, a delivery, it's safe to assume, could be in a van of some sort. And again, it has not been demonstrated that the only delivery bay actually for all the units will be in this place that can actually physically get in between this parking space here, the bin store here, and can actually access it. So we've got no evidence of how this operation will actually continue to work. And again, just one more point, you've got the habitable windows here and the distances between those, and then the layouts here as well, where you've got windows here for the living rooms, and again they're approximately 6 or 7 metres away from the flank walls of the next units. In terms of the addendum, if I can, there's a couple of items. We have received 20 letters of support from residents, and also just to mention that the East Coast Conservation Panel have also objected to the scheme, but the objections are actually identical to the ones that you can see on page 13 under the East Coast Residents Association. For the reasons summarised, it is recommended that the application be refused. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, petition on this one, Jackie Redrup. You can press the button when you're ready, and we'll begin timing.
So firstly, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak, and good evening, Chairman and committee members. Obviously, I'm against the application, although I do note and respect the 20 people who wrote in supporting the application. I'm not going to take up very much of your time, particularly as I'm so conscious of the loss of time on the meeting starting time, largely because the objections have been very cogently put by the case officer, Mandeep Chagga, whom we thank for that. They very much support the objections that ERA put in and that the other residents have put in, and together we had. There's little purpose to going through them endlessly over again. And therefore, all I can really say on that is that the fact we're not talking about them does not negate the real concerns we have, and the fact that we believe the 5 reasons for refusal are very strong and should be upheld. I would draw your attention to the fact that I did ask to go into the addendum that the numbers of people who signed the petition, and it is relevant because it was an objection, was actually 83 and not 48. And that's quite a substantial number and shows the support for the concerns.
We'll note that correction.
Thank you very much. East Coast Conservation Panel was largely as I had written in for ERA, but I would just add that they put in quite a little bit more about the issue with the loss of trees and green and environmental issues of that nature, which I supported, but I did not actually comment on. So that is an additional area of concern. And I think at the end of the day, One of the other things I would say is a very minor point on parking. There is one residential parking space that is already granted by their lease, and that's 107. It is actually on the plan, but it's an interesting one and highlights one of the transport problems, and that is that the person owns a truck. He does not own a small car, and the current layout, I'm only supporting your comments on the lack of information on parking. You can see from the drawing that a truck would not fit that space. So it's just an example, nothing more nor less in that regard. And over and above that, I think there were just so many things on this application that suggest it really has to be refused, captured in the report, because in sum, it is a site that simply is not suitable for residential accommodation. If you do have any questions or queries for me, if there's a discussion to be had, very much welcome it, very happy to answer questions. Otherwise, thank you for your time, and I hope that you will uphold the recommendation as it's made for refusal. Thank you.
No, I'm getting no indication of member questions. If you just turn the button off for us, that would be great. Thank you. The agent for this one, Juliet Heap.
Right, thank you, and thank you for letting me have the time today. So my name is Juliet. I work with For the Long, and I'm the planning consultant working with the applicant here in support of the proposals. As noted within the officer's report, given the location of the site in the urban area, in conjunction with the fact that it's previously developed land, there is no, in principle, objection to its development. Furthermore, as members will be aware, housing is in short supply in the borough, and creating new homes is crucial to addressing this growing demand. The site is in a sustainable location with easy access to local shops and services, as well as being a short walking distance from public transport. In short, its development in the manner proposed is entirely consistent with the guidance set out in the NPPF. Importantly, following on from pre-application discussions, significant work has gone into the detailed design of the scheme to provide an acceptable development which enhances the character and appearance of the local area. Notwithstanding this, we note the concerns raised by us and some of the local residents, and we appreciate the opportunity to respond. Contrary to the views of officers, we consider that the proposal results in a significantly improved character and visual amenity of this road, which is currently a fairly neglected and underutilised brownfield site, as can be seen from some of the images that you've seen this evening already. The provision of 4 well-designed, attractive residential dwellings in this location is a positive benefit. Further, whilst officers refer to the existing character being predominantly single-storey, we respectfully disagree with this assessment, which does not take account of the greater contribution made by the properties fronting Field End Road, which are ground plus 2 storeys in height. We see no reason for the development to reflect the existing poor appearance of the service road. The aim has been to create an improved street scene through the introduction of contemporary muse-style developments. With regard to the amenity for future residents, officers note that in terms of internal and external space, the proposed houses exceed recommended standards, and sunlight and daylight levels are also acceptable. The main concern relates to the possible overlooking from upstairs bedroom windows of the properties along Field End Road to the proposed terraces of Units 3 and 4. We have 3 points particularly to make here. Firstly, second floor windows of the flats fronting Field End Road are set back from the first floor, which itself inhibits downward views. Secondly, it is unlikely that bedrooms and terraces would be used at the same time, given their relative respective uses. Finally, as can be seen from the visuals, views of the terrace would be prevented by timber and obscure glass privacy screens. Accordingly, the relationship in our view is entirely acceptable. As to the outlook from kitchen windows of the existing flats, we do not consider that the 15-metre distance cited by officers is applicable in this instance. In this case, the subject windows are set at the same level as the upper floor of the proposed houses. This is not a case where the proposed building rises 2 storeys above the adjacent residential property to which this 15-metre distance relates. Indeed, far from dominating the outlook, instead of looking down onto a run-down service yard, the flats will face well-treated green roofs and soft landscaping. Furthermore, given that there are no windows on the rear elevation of the proposed houses and the introduction of privacy screens to the terraces, there can and will be no loss of privacy to these flats. Finally, the development meets the 25-degree test, ensuring there will be no appreciable loss of light. As to matters of parking, 7 of the retail properties affected have the right to park a vehicle within the service road, all of which are proposed to be replaced. Importantly, just the existing flat at 107 has the right to park, and they have a right to park a car, not a truck, in this location. All of these parking spaces will be re-provided, including for the flat. In addition, there will be 6 parking spaces for the new residential flats. Regarding the layout of the access road, while concerns have been raised, the Highway Authority has offered a solution by way of an adjustment to the positioning of the proposed bollards, providing a wider service road for larger vehicles, whilst at the same time improving the manoeuvrability into the parking spaces. With this adjustment, the report concludes that the road layout would comply with highways requirements, and I see no reason why this couldn't be conditioned. With regard to lighting as well, we have in fact proposed lighting bollards along the road. And again, should the council wish to see an alteration to this, we would be willing to discuss that, and it can be conditioned. As for the accessible homes, the development can and will be required to meet Part 10 of the building regulations, which addresses matters of access. In light of the above, I hope that members are able to support the scheme. If there are lingering concerns with regard to parking and access, it would be open to members to approve the application, subject to a satisfactory resolution on these matters being achieved. Thank you for your time.
Members have any questions? Nope. Thank you very much indeed. Could you just turn that microphone
Thank
off
you.
for me, please? Okay. No ward councillors. I'll open it. Councillor Higgins. Even at the end of the table, I suppose.
Even at the table, I'll still speak. No, I'll go with. I'll actually propose the officer's recommendation on this. I can see, to be honest, the design. I'm a designer, so I can understand a bit, but it's not functional. There's lots of issues here that they need to address. The idea I can see in principle is going somewhere, but the parking facilities is just inadequate, and there's no parking scheme in it or thing, and I'm not prepared to leave officers to do that. That should have been done. A lot of money's been spent on this, and they should have done that. So, but on that note, I'll propose that.
Councillor Flynn also indicated.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It did make me laugh actually when the applicant's agent mentioned about these properties being easily accessible for the shops. The problem I would say would seem to be that they're actually too accessible for the shops. They're pretty much next to the shops and the flats, and I think the separation issues and the lack of separation is one of the major problems here. I'm also not convinced with some of the access arguments. These sort of premises, shop premises, quite often have big lorries delivering food, particularly as a lot of those shops are restaurants and takeaways, and I can imagine lorries going down there at all times of night and delivering quite heavy items. So for those reasons, I'm very happy to second Councillor Higgins's proposal, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, unless anybody's got anything else on this one, I'm not sensing any hands rushing up. The proposal is that we accept the officer report and refuse it for the 5 reasons given in the report on pages 8 and 9. All those in favour of refusal, please clearly shout. Thank you very much. That one's refused. I now move on to item 7, numbers 5 and 6, Firs Walk and land to the rear of 25 Dean Road.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. The application seeks the application seeks outline planning permission for the removal of the existing dwellings and the erection of 6 detached dwellings. The details that are being considered are for the access to the site and the proposed layout. All other matters are reserved for future consideration. If I just talk members through the slides, I'll just show you. The application site is located on the eastern side of Firs Walk. There's a small single-track private road and currently comprises 2 detached 2-storey properties and their garden space, and a section of the rear garden of 25 Dean Road. To the west are numbers 5 and 7, and the end of the rear garden of Tormead, and to the east is a turning head of the adjacent cul-de-sac Foxdale, and the properties number 8 and 13. The street scene, if I take members to the photos, you can just see two houses set in large plots, and that's pretty much what you've got all the way around. And some of the photos just give you an indication of the large properties set within large gardens. In terms of the application itself, I'll just show you the layout, proposed layout. Bear with me. So you can see you've gone from the 2 houses to 6. The proposed layout would result in a cramped development that will be harmful to the character and appearance of the street scene and the wider area, including the Dean Road area of special local character within which the site lies. Although the proposal has included an acceptable access and the provision of a turning head, which is adequate to address highway safety concerns, the proximity of the turning head, if I can just show you here, so that means the cars can go in and then reverse out and leave. That is the proximity of that turning head to the habitable accommodation here. So I think it's less than a metre to the front windows of this property. Would result in an unacceptable level of noise and light pollution to the detriment of any future occupiers of that particular house. Furthermore, the proposed development would constitute a form of backland development that would fail to maintain the open and verdant character and appearance of the surrounding area. For the reasons summarised, it is recommended that the application be refused. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, we have a petition on this one. Okay, if you just press the green button, the red button when you're ready. I'm getting my buttons confused now. It's a long evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, councillors, officers. Thank you very much for the time. So yes, thank you very much for that very good appraisal of the application. My name is Richard Anthony. I am chairman of the Dean Road Residents Association. We have 120 households within that association, both in Dean Road and in 6 tributary roads, of which Firs Walk and Foxdale form part. As you quite rightly said, we are an area of special local character, and for reasons you've seen from the photograph, a lot of the properties are well established, the gardens are well established, the trees are of some age, and it gives a very pleasant, obviously nice local area. As a resident association, we don't normally oppose the extension or development of any individual property. I've been chairman for 13 years and we've never done so in that time, and to my knowledge, I was on the committee before, and to my knowledge we oppose no other individual developments. We advise residents on how to apply for planning permission, what to actually go for, what might or might not be acceptable, and we certainly advise any of our residents who wish to object to their neighbours' developments. But this development, as you've quite rightly had described just now, proposes the demolition of 2 attractive, well-maintained properties with pleasant gardens, typical of the area and very much in keeping with the character of that area. And these are to be replaced with 6 detached executive-style properties squeezed into the same land. And this is what we object to, obviously. The sheer density and the change of character of that development is, to our mind, unacceptable. We're pleased to see that the planning report mirrored that to a large extent. As a resident association, we approached all of our residents within the area. It was over a 2-day period to raise the petition. We managed to speak to 77 out of our 120 households in that time, bearing in mind it was a holiday period. We obtained 111 signatures to that petition, showing strong support within the whole area against the proposal. Although we have 120 households, it's a relatively tight area, and everyone is aware of the tributary roads, probably have friends in many of them. It's a reasonably, not a tight community, I wouldn't suggest that, but everyone does tend to know a lot of the residents around there. There's a lot of older residents amongst our population. We also understand from the report, because we wouldn't have been party to that, thank you very much for this, that 34 letters or communications objecting to the proposal were received by the council, listing in total 19 individual points of objection. some of them very strong ones, and again supported by the council report. I differ to one of the earlier speakers, not about this property, but as I understand it, Hillingdon Council is actually meeting its housing development target at the moment. Yes, good, thank you. This really does highlight the fact that the sole purpose of this development is the financial benefit for the developer. It's not going to enhance our area, does not provide social housing in any form, and is merely to actually make money for that developer. We'd like to applaud I've been strongly asked to make the point that we applaud the Council Planning Department for their thorough, balanced and well-constructed report on the proposal. And we note that that report raises 14 objections to this development. That really is the nub of our objection to this. I have one other point though, which is not a planning issue, but it relates to access to the site. In fact, the proposal includes part of the privately owned Firs Walk as the entrance to the left, that stepped part. That is actually part of private land, but not part of the proposed purchase to make up this site. So I think there's a little bit of license there. Plus, the element of Foxdale to the right, with the red arrow along it, to the end of those two properties marked there. Foxdale does continue past that. That is actually private property as well. Yes, thank you very much. And as the Residents Association, we will actually be prosecuting any common trespass on that land.
Okay, obviously,
thank you.
Just for clarification, issues of land ownership are things we can't consider, as you are aware, and they are civil matters to be negotiated.
Totally understand. We were expecting an agent to be here, so
yes, and we might have asked him that, but as he appears not to be here, those are matters for him. But thank you very much for that. Do members have any questions? That was very well explained. I don't think they will. Thank you very much indeed. There is nobody purporting to be the agent for this one, I don't think, in the room. So let's go. Councillor Oswald.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, I mean, it's completely out of character and it's not in keeping what's already there. I'll support the officer's recommendation and I'll move the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Higgins.
I will second that gladly.
Thank you. Nobody else is raising their hands, so I'm presuming everyone's comfortable. Refusal, 2 reasons shown. All those in favour of refusal, please clearly show me. Thank you. That's unanimously refused. Thank you very much. I move to item 8, 14 Ferncroft Avenue, Ruislip.
Thank you, Chairman. 14 Ferncroft Avenue. I'll just take members through the slides. This is a site where enforcement action has previously been taken for a site extension. For those members recall this one, 14 Ferncroft, this site extension. What we have is a proposal to demolish that and to build a more appropriate extension. That's how it looks. It's a great view of it. There's a tree. You can't quite see it, but in essence, what they're proposing, it's considered the proposal would appear subordinate. It's going to be set back by 2.35 metres from the front, so from that point. So I can't even tell which one. I can't see the plan. Yeah, so it's considered the proposal would appear subordinate. The setback from the front elevation would not harm the architectural composition of the house when viewed from the street. Given its position on the corner, the proposal would not result in the closure of the gap between the properties and would be a significant improvement on the existing situation and addresses the issues raised in the appeal. For the reasons summarised, it is recommended that the application be approved. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, Councillor Flynn, then Councillor Higgins, then Councillor Sansapori.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What's there at the moment is horribly ugly. We've had it before us before. I think we can all agree on that. I'm told it's an improvement. It won't be difficult to be an improvement on that, but I'm confident that it will be if the officer says so. So I am happy to support officer's recommendation.
Well, I think
for
if we got it
approval.
smaller with materials that match would help it a lot. Councillor Higgins.
You're actually taking the words out. I mean, I agree with officers. I'm fine with that. As long as we have some control over materials. And I know it's in here and that, but obviously we can see the past form of this.
That was not approved.
Yeah, exactly. I know, but you can see their thinking of what is good, acceptable design. Not, but I'll go with officer's recommendation.
Yeah, I'll pull that in a minute. I'll add that. Sorry. Yes, indeed. Bleached bricks. I'm going to, given Councillor Higgins raises a very valid point, given the history of this, you've got the standard materials condition for a small extension on this. Given their history of what they think might be acceptable, I think we'll delegate to the head of planning to amend that condition to strengthen, to see the materials actually come in. Because I think we want to make sure this time round they do actually get it to match. Not because their previous attempt was not very good. Well, yeah, there are other words I could have used. I'm being nice tonight. Councillor Stansbury, sorry, I wasn't. No, no, exactly. Microphone, please, sorry.
They are asking to demolish the unauthorized building and asking for permission to build within legal base. So naturally, it has been proposed on second. I have the same view.
So what I'll be doing is I'll be setting in timescales that they need to do it, just as condition one basically ensures that this is dealt with quickly. The same will apply for the materials condition. So it won't be our standard samples, it'll be one that actually means the whole matter has to be dealt with quickly.
Good. Please clearly show for me. Thank you. Unanimously approved. Item 9 gets more interesting now. We're in Harefield with a pumping station.
Yes.
Do members require a presentation given the area, what it is, etc.?
I'll move the officer's recommendation.
Oh, that's very good of you, Councillor Russell. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Hager. That was very good. Councillor Higgins might just want to raise a query. You're not going to ask me for a presentation, though, are you? No. Oh, good.
I'm just mindful of, we have another issue down there, and I'm wondering if this is actually connected to it, about vehicle movements. Do we have any knowledge on vehicle movements on this?
What, for this pumping station?
Yeah. To be blunt, if it's just a pumping station, that's fine. But we've had some activity recently in Moorhole Road, a lot of activity of vehicle movements. So I'm just, obviously, my other hat on, as it were.
Yeah, you are using this opportunity
to
take my committee
just to make
time.
sure that officers have looked into that.
Yeah, I'm sure I know what it is. Do officers have anything, or would we suggest the member uses the normal routes to find out this information?
There is no information because the proposal isn't for the
I'm being nice
station.
here. Yeah.
It'd be very pleasant. That's very fine. That's fine.
No, he doesn't have any information. So therefore, the member uses the normal routes to find out
I
information.
will use his normal routes. I have used the normal routes. I'm just wondering if it's the same.
No, it doesn't appear to be.
That's fine.
We're proposed and seconded. Having waived the presentation, all those in favour of approval, please clearly show. We then get to a general purpose agricultural building. This is full of excitement. Again in Harefield. We're in Harefield with agriculture. Absolutely.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, go on.
Shall I present this one then? Yeah, let me earn my money.
Could you just show us the pictures?
Yeah, I'll just show it. Yeah.
Could we
We've got a Shepherd's Hill Farm. I'll just show you where it's. This pointer would work. There we go. So it's this little red dot there with the access. They're just showing the access there. I'll show you the photos. This is what it will look like. It's actually just for reference a three-sided building, not 3 stories, single story. Yeah, it's too late. With an open front there. Show members there, and it's general purpose of machinery, straw, hay, that type of thing, and it's a farm, and that's what it's going to look like. Yeah, so.
Okay, I think that probably.
Yeah, fine with this one. I'll go with officer reservation. Just obviously that the hard standing is does absorb the water and disperse it will probably. Yeah, I know it's in there. I'm just obviously.
There is a subs condition on this which deals with water runoff, so that will do it. Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. keep Hillingdon farming. So I second the recommendation.
Okay, any others, no other views? All those in favour, please clearly show. Good, thank you very much, that one's approved. Thank you, and thank you for your agreement to keep that moving. 8:40 we close.